Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, my name is Sherry. I'm an avid minimalist who believes that we can live life a lot better when we have less stuff. I am really excited for today's video because I think for those of you who are also doing a no-buy in 2025, that what I'm going to talk about today is going to be really helpful on a practical level to make sure that my no-buy, your no-buy is successful next year. So thank you guys so much for being here. Go ahead and grab something warm to drink and let's jump right into it. We are just around the corner from 2025, just around the corner from embarking on an entire year of not buying anything that is not essential. That is a major undertaking that takes a lot of commitment. And so while I have done no buy and no spend challenges before, an entire year is a big undertaking. As excited as I am for this challenge, I want to make sure that I'm setting myself up for success. So I'm trying to think through different seasons of our lives during the year, what comes up, emotions and triggers that I might have during the year, and trying to set up strategies, sort of think through how I'm going to deal with that in the upcoming year. And so today I'm going to be going over the 4 different things that I have been thinking about, that I have been trying to put into practice in order to make my no buy for next year successful. So the first thing that I have been doing is I have used the month of December as sort of a practice run for my no buy year. When I go into the store and I have these impulsive tendencies, usually I get these impulsive tendencies with things that I didn't even know existed before I saw them in that moment. And I've started to have mental conversations with myself when this happens, like the moment that I see it, the moment that that impulse hits. There are 3 different things that I will ask myself to help myself not be as impulsive in that moment. So the first question that I ask myself is, what is triggering me to buy this item? Like I said, I've been doing this over the course of December, so a few weeks now, and I've noticed that almost every single time that that trigger hits, it's literally because of the way the store has it set up. Marketers are so good at what they do, and they create this experience and this sort of model in the store that makes you think it looks so good in the store, it's going to look so great in my house or on me when it's at home. And it just entices us to buy it that much more. So I try very hard to answer the question, what is triggering me to buy this, very honestly. And I try to dig into what emotions I'm feeling in that moment. Once I acknowledge whatever emotions I'm having, I sort of talk myself through it, but I also remind myself, and I would encourage you to do this too, remind yourself that marketers, this is their job, is to make you feel like you're inadequate, make you feel like you're not good enough, make you feel like you're going to be missing out if you don't buy this item. So I try to answer that question about what's triggering me to buy this very honestly, and sometimes that's hard to do, but I've noticed that the more I do it, the easier and the more quickly I can have that conversation with myself. The second question that I ask myself is buying this thing worth being further from being debt-free? And that every single time the answer is no. And it's an easy no for sure, but it also sometimes, especially when you're in the middle of a debt-free journey, it gets boring to keep saying no. Initially, you're all amped up and you're excited about saying no, but then at points it just sort of comes to, I'm bored, I've gone without, this isn't fun anymore, I'll just treat myself this one time. And I think it's really important to remind yourself of the bigger goal that you're trying to reach And mental conversations like these are really important to have because it's you acknowledging and addressing your feelings and your emotions, but it's also you sort of having that conversation with yourself about what is most important to you right now. Is the most important thing buying that and taking that home, being able to wear that thing, being able to show off that thing? Or is the most important thing for you being that much closer to being debt-free? Being that much closer to whatever goal you're trying to reach by doing a no spend or a no buy. Every single time that the impulse hits, I've noticed for me that it has made a world of difference in me being able to walk away from that item. The third question that I like to ask myself is, how have I dealt or lived without this item until now? A very practical example and recent example of this is I used mouthwash up until recently, and then I ran out. And then I don't know why, but before I ran out and bought another bottle, I started to do some research on if mouthwash is actually essential for hygienic purposes or if you can just brush your teeth and floss. And what I found, mouthwash is not necessary or even recommended. As long as you're flossing and brushing twice a day, that is perfectly adequate oral health, and mouthwash is not actually necessary. So when it came time for me to buy that thing of mouthwash, it was only like $6.99 or whatever, but I remembered, you know what, I don't actually need to buy this. This again is someone else telling me that my oral health will be better, that I will be healthier if I use this, when that actually isn't the case. When you have to question your purchases, how could I do without this? How can I get along without having this thing? Do I even really need it? Answering those questions in real time, doing some extra research if you have to, can actually make saying no to that impulse a lot easier. And then I also make sure that I remind myself of this quote by Henry David Thoreau. It's one of my all-time favorite quotes by him, and the quote is, "I make myself rich by making my wants few." I think that that is such a profound saying, and obviously it comes from Thoreau, so that's not entirely surprising, but it's such a good anchoring thing to think about, is that the less that we want, the more we actually have, the better and bigger our contentment is. When that impulse hits, that is a quote that I remind myself of. It's actually the background on my phone screen, which is really helpful as well, to just remind ourselves that the less we want, the more we actually have. The second thing that I'm doing to prepare myself mentally for an entire year of a no spend is I did a forecast budget for 2025. So a forecast budget, if you're not familiar, is just where you budget into the future and just sort of get a game plan for your money ahead of time. The reason that I did it is because our primary reason for doing a no spend in 2025 is to become debt-free. And I wanted to see if becoming debt-free, credit card debt-free, I should emphasize, if that was even possible. And I knew that the only way to see if that was actually possible was to put it into a spreadsheet. I have been budgeting ever since I've had my own money pretty much. So like 20 years now, 15, 20 years. I am very, very good at making an Excel spreadsheet where I list out all of our bills, the due dates, our expected income, how much we have left over, how that gets allocated. I've been doing it for a really long time, and I've got a very basic system in place, but it works incredibly well. It is not complicated at all. I went through and I took into consideration multiple things. Number one, my husband's raise, also how much I am going to be working. So I work very part-time at Target, and I only work while my kids are in school, which is really nice because it allows me to be home when they're out of school. It works really well. So I took what I was going to be able to work into account. I also thought about bills that fluctuate during the year and things that we may have to pay for at certain times of the year and then not pay for at other times of the year. So this is going to be stuff like our water bill. Our water bill inevitably goes up in the summertime because we do have to refill our pool, when we're balancing chemicals and doing all of that. So our water bill goes up. Our air conditioning is ran obviously all throughout the month, and that pretty much doubles our electricity bill during the summer. So things like that I really try to think about and take into consideration during those months. I would look at what we've paid this year and the years prior to get an idea. I use those numbers when I do the budget. So that's a really good way for me to get a very realistic idea of whether or not we would be able to accomplish this in 12 months. Now, I will be completely transparent in saying we may not completely get everything paid off, but we are going to be super, super close. I'm talking like within $1,500 will be credit card debt free, which is amazing. And so I know that with maybe a little bit of extra work, an unexpected bonus, things like that, this is a very doable goal that we have. But I also made sure when I did this forecast budget that I used very conservative numbers. That's why I went back and looked through our bills, what we've paid previously, so that I could get an accurate idea. And that way, when I look at the forecast budget versus what we actually end up accomplishing, it's not going to be too far off. I think that when you make a budget, it needs to be super, super realistic, or else you're just setting yourself up for failure. So by doing a forecast budget, it allowed me to see how close we would be able to get to that goal by the end of the year. And honestly, how close we can get, it just got me so excited and motivated for this challenge. And I think that's something that when my motivation next year wanes, which it inevitably will, I can look back on that and think about, okay, if we just push through, if we just keep going, we're going to be that much closer. If you're doing a no buy or a no spend for financial reasons, I would recommend this strategy 100% because it will motivate you to stick to this. So I cannot recommend this enough. The third thing that I'm doing to prepare myself for this no buy is I am visualizing, both like metaphorically but also on like a vision board, what our life will look like if we can make this successful. So many things are going to change for us. Literally the entire trajectory of our lives could be changed by 1 year of consistent, dedicated, hard work. So I really try to think about what that's going to look like practically. That's going to look like a fully funded emergency fund. That's going to look like traveling with our kids a lot easier. That's going to look like doing more renovations to our house. If you haven't seen the house tour, I'll go ahead and I'll link that down below so you can see that we are not done renovating our house, but by having all of that extra money freed up, will make those renovations happen so much faster. Visualizing what your life will be like when you're not under that burden is such a motivating strategy, probably better than doing the forecast budgeting, although that one's pretty close. Those two strategies together will motivate and set you on fire for this challenge like nothing else will. And then the fourth and last thing that I'm doing to get ready for this entire year of a no spend is that I am going to be journaling throughout this year. So I'm not going to be going and buying a journal specifically for this. I'm just going to do it on my MacBook, but I want to journal out every time I have an impulse, how I handled it, what every month looked like in terms of progress, where we slipped up if we did, how we handled that slip up. And I think that it's a really good way, first of all, to sort of process a no spend as you're going through it. But I also can't wait until I've journaled the entire year and I can look back on what it was like and how we got through it to be able to share that on here to help people who may be going into 2026. doing a no buy and a no spend. So I'm really excited for journaling. Journaling is not something that I do regularly, so it is going to be a little bit of an adjustment, and I'm actually going to start doing this tomorrow to get myself into the habit of it before January 1st hits. So I think that that will be another really good strategy to help me be successful on this no buy. So those are the 4 things that I have been doing to get myself ready for an entire year of not spending money on things that are non-essential. I am really excited not only for the financial freedom that this is going to bring us, but also I'm excited to be able to look back on the creative solutions that we came up with in order to avoid having to spend money and how we worked through all of those situations. I'm really looking forward to as well just a year of enjoying simple things. If you've been around here for any length of time, you know that I love simple pleasures in life. A good book, a hot cup of coffee, sitting in my sunroom listening to the birds, being outside with my kids, being in nature, hiking, all of these things that don't cost a dime, but just really fill my cup in a way that consumerism and materialism never can. So I'm really excited to lean into that, to teach my kids that, or continue to teach my kids that, an entire year of a breath of fresh air, if you will. So I'm really, really excited to embark on this challenge. This no buy is going to be a series on my YouTube. So if you are interested in doing a no buy, if you're interested in any of that financial related content, be sure to subscribe to my channel every month. Twice a month, I want to post on how the no buy month went, sort of what we did well, what we struggled with, but I also want to give you guys a breakdown on how much closer to our goal we got that month. I think that it's really fun to see other people's journeys, to see what they did well, what they didn't, and how they navigated that. So all of that is going to be in the series coming up in 2025 with my no buy. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.